This is Research Like a Pro, episode 386, Disappearing Act, John Royston, Apprentice. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogist professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the authors of Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide. With Robin Worthland, they also co-authored the companion volume, Research Like a Pro with DNA. Join Diana and Nicole as they discuss how to stay organized, make progress in their research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go! Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com. Hi out there, everyone listening. Welcome to Research Like a Pro.
Hi, Nicole. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been working on the finishing touches for my Sally Keaton in Arkansas report, the third phase of Sally Keaton, and I just focused on trying to find any clues about her and her extended family from the time they lived in Izard and Fulton counties, Arkansas. And I had kind of finished up everything last week, but I didn't write the conclusion. And so somebody in the study group commented on my report, and I went and looked at it, and then I realized I needed to add the conclusion. And I only had 10 minutes before we started podcasting. So I decided to see if I could just use the Gemini sidebar within Google Docs to write the conclusion. So I opened up, so I've been writing this entire research plan and then the report all within the same research project document, just because I was trying to be efficient this time with that. And I was writing as I went along and all that. And so I just went ahead and opened up the Gemini sidebar in that document where all of the research plan and all of the findings and all the report was, and just said, write a conclusion for this report. And it did a great job. It was very succinct, but it covered the main highlights of what was found, what wasn't found. The half of the objective was met. I figured out kind of the main reasons why they moved to Arkansas, and the other half wasn't really met. I didn't really find any more information about when Sally died. Her headstone just says after 1880, but she wasn't on the 1880 census. And I did a little more searching in the 1880 census and didn't really find anything. Didn't find her on the 1880 mortality schedule. Didn't find anything really with her name on it at all in Arkansas, except for the census records I already had. So it wasn't really that successful as far as that part. But I did find a couple other things with some of the fan club research I did. So it summarized that pretty well. And I was happy with that. And then the next section I had to do was the results summary. And so I just told Gemini in the sidebar, the next thing you need to do is create the results summary, starting each bullet with an action verb. And it did a great job with that too. And it just missed one thing. And I told it, make a bullet about, negative findings for Sarah's death date. And because it kind of skipped that. And then it added that one bullet, and then I was done.
Isn't that awesome? I love using AI.
And just as far as disclosing for my readers and for myself for future reference, I just put before the conclusion, I just wrote written by Gemini, and then pasted it. And then the same thing for the results summary so that I would remember that it was all just written by Gemini.
Yeah, that's great. I did the same thing for my latest study group report. I did it with the citation. I just put, the little footnote at the beginning or at the end of the results summary, and then at the bottom did a footnote to say this was generated by Claude based on this report. But I find the results summary and the conclusion to be just such a good way to use AI. It's amazing. And I agree. Sometimes you do have to tell it to add a little bit more. Sometimes the conclusion, it doesn't include quite enough, and I want it to be a little bit more detailed. And so, it's just really easy to tell it to do more or add something. But having it get started for you is just such a time saver.
Yeah, I did edit a couple things about dates and things. Just it is nice to have it get started and then go in there and fix it however you need it. So
what I found is you just have to be careful that it doesn't make any assumptions, because when I read through the conclusion, there were a couple of things in there that I thought, oh, this is possible, but the way it was worded sounded like that's the way it was. And so I had to add some qualifiers like, this is a possibility. So, we do have to be the human in the loop, as we say, and always check AI. Make sure it is how we want to put forth our research, not just how AI interprets it.
Such a good point. I like that. And probably a prompt tip would be to just include some kind of statement like, write the conclusion and don't make any inferences. Make sure you use the same qualifiers used in the text, such as possible, likely, and don't make anything seem more certain than it is.
That actually is really, really good. I really like that idea. Well, let's do some announcements. We have our Research Like a Pro webinar series for 2025 coming up. This is our last one of the year. This one is on a Tuesday, December 16th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and I will be presenting my case on Henderson Weatherford. I have been researching him for a few phases now, I believe at least 2, maybe 3. So I have come to some good conclusions, made some fun discoveries. So I titled this Challenging Accepted Ancestry, a new look at Henderson Weatherford's family origins. This presentation examines how careful analysis of historical records can overturn commonly accepted family connections based on surname and geographic proximity. Henderson Weatherford's case study demonstrates an effective methodology for questioning family relationships found in online trees. Through systematic evaluation of tax records, census documents, land records, and probate files, learn how indirect and negative evidence can build a compelling case for new family connections. We'll examine the role of DNA in confirming hypotheses derived from documentary research. So I'm excited to share my research and how I did this. This is one of those cases where 10 years ago, I just didn't know what else to do with this family. And so it's been so neat to see how learning how to do better research and how to use indirect and negative evidence makes such a difference. The next study group we are excited to announce will be with DNA, and it starts February 2026, and registration is opening soon on December 5th, 2025. So be sure and check it out if you're interested in joining us. If you have been through the study group before and you have a report written, you can apply to be a peer group leader. The application's on our website. Then you have complimentary registration. Join our newsletter that comes out every Monday to learn about new posts, upcoming lectures, get coupon codes for any specials that we're running. And we're excited for Roots Tech, which is the next major conference coming up. It's coming so fast. It's March 5th through 7th, 2026, and we will be there. We will have our booth, and I have 3 different lectures that I'll be presenting, so we hope you'll come by and say hi when we're there. And we are also excited to talk about our new Research Like a Pro Institute, which takes place April 30th to June 11th. This will be on Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And our coordinator is Jan Joyce. The course is titled Merging and Separating Identities, Advanced Techniques to Organize, Analyze, and Solve. And if you're interested in this, will be a fabulous institute. You can see the complete schedule at familylocket.com. You can learn about the instructors, the specific classes, and see if this is something that you would really like to be involved in to help you with your research. Well, today we get to talk about one of our ancestors. He is kind of the scoundrel in our family. He is one who tended to run away and disappear. So these types of ancestors can leave very interesting records that give us more information than we might find in the usual census or deed. And this is the case of John Royston, who ran away from his employer when he was a 19-year-old apprentice in Virginia. This was one of those records that in the very early stages of my Royston research I discovered, and it was so fun. Well, I decided to write a fun blog post about it for one of the 52 Ancestor series, and I've been using AI to help me learn about the context, and in this case, I even used it to generate a couple of fun images that came from the description that we will be talking about in this episode.
All right, this is so fun. So, this originally came from the Virginia Gazette, and within that, there was an advertisement that had the employer, Samuel Daniel, who was a subscriber to the Virginia Gazette, talking about how his apprentice ran away. And so The ad in the Virginia Gazette says, "Run away from the subscriber, an apprentice lad named John Royston. He is the son of Mr. Richard Wyatt Royston of Gloucester County, 19 years old last September, about 5 feet 6 inches high. Has a frowning down look and light brown hair tied behind, though not very long. Had on a light colored frieze coat with a small cape to it and bound with ferreting, a new broadcloth waistcoat and breeches, I think blue or blue gray, of pretty fine cloth, and took with him sundry other clothes. He rode away on a small iron gray mare and an old saddle, which has been one of the best kind, though much worn. He may pretend to know something of the chair making and blacksmith business. I hereby forewarn all persons from employing or harboring him on their peril. Any person that will take up the said apprentice and bring or convey him to the subscriber shall receive 30 shillings reward, paid by Samuel Daniel, N.B. I have great reason to believe he is in Bedford County or Prince William among his acquaintances." So that was quite the ad, down to the clothing he was wearing and the horse and the saddle. And it does sound like Samuel Daniel was very unhappy that his apprentice ran away with all these things. Well, since it had such a fun, detailed description, it was such a great opportunity to generate an image with AI. So that was kind of a fun exercise. So Diana asked AI for an image that matched the description in the ad. So she provided that ad text. And then um, ChatGPT actually came up with the entire ad with an image of a guy on a horse added to it. And it even included the print in the 1770 style, where the lowercase s's kind of look like the long S and look like an F when they're printed. And so that was fun. And then the picture of John, he kind of has a grumpy face. It must be his frowning down look. And he's riding on a small horse. So that was fun, and AI did a great job with that. Next, she actually tried creating an image using Gemini as well. And she went straight to the Google AI Studio website using Gemini 2.5 Flash. And she asked AI to create an image based on just the description. And so it didn't know it was an advertisement. And it generated an image in a photorealistic style. And it's really interesting to see this photo. I mean, it looks like a photo um, with a man wearing a cape with a collar and like the blue gray color clothing underneath. It was really good. And he has a frowning down look. He's making a grumpy face and looking down. So that was funny. And so, Mom, did the Gemini put the Gemini watermark in the image for you?
Yeah, it does. So I use the new Nano Banana and it does put the little watermark down there. So I think that's helpful. If I were to ever put this anywhere, like in the blog post, I clearly have it labeled that this was AI, and I would never put it up, say, on Family Search or Ancestry, because it would just confuse people. I mean, we obviously didn't have cameras in 1770, especially that would look this good. But you never know if people would really think it was real. So if I were to use it for fun, I would probably put something even more explicit, maybe even text across it, generated by AI, not just the little Gemini symbol, because not everyone maybe would even recognize what that was.
Yeah. Well, I like how you have a caption on it.
Yeah, it's pretty good to have a caption on it, especially since it is so realistic. But I thought it was super fun to see what it came up with, and especially since I had that great description. We don't usually have a description of an ancestor like that, so it was pretty
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I really like that the image kind of has that black and white, almost sepia tone, but then the color, there is some color
A
added
little bit of
to
blue.
him. Yeah,
Yep.
and a little bit of red on the cape, and his hair almost looks like it could be red or orange. I mean, not that we know his hair color, but it was supposed to be light brown, I think. But um, the other thing I was going to say is that the Nano Banana, the name, that's the nickname given to Gemini 2.5 Flash's image generator. So that's what Nano Banana means.
Isn't it fun that they gave us something very unique instead of just image generator 2.0, something so generic. So I like it when they come up with something unique and fun.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a word from our sponsor. The air is getting crisp, and for many of us, that means a little extra time to dive into our family history. As genealogists, we spend years building our family trees. But what if you could do more than just connect the dots? What if you could bring those names on your tree to life? This is where newspapers.com comes in. Imagine reading your great-grandparents' wedding announcement, finding an article about your ancestor's business, or even seeing a photo of the house where your grandma grew up. Newspapers.com is an incredible resource for anyone passionate about genealogy. With more than 29,000 historical newspapers, you can search for your family names, their hometowns, or important dates, and discover the small personal details that transform a name on a page into a real person with a real story. And with the holidays approaching, a newspapers.com gift subscription is the perfect present for the family historian in your life. It's a gift of discovery, of connection, and of countless untold stories waiting to be found. Just head over to newspapers.com/gift and use promo code FamilyLocket to purchase a subscription for someone special. That's newspapers.com/gift. Your favorite genealogist will thank you. After I had generated those images, I wanted to learn more about the context behind the advertisement. So at this time, I used Claude AI and requested some additional information. So Claude did some searching on the web and provided some additional details, and it included links so I could verify. It, first of all, it gave me some historical context of the advertisement. And so Claude wrote, the Virginia Gazette was Virginia's first newspaper, established in 1736, and runaway advertisements were extremely common and profitable for the newspaper. These advertisements for servants or slaves runaway provided important revenue for the Virginia Gazette's various printers. Colonial Williamsburg between 1736 and 1783. Landowners advertised in the Virginia Gazette for more than 3,500 fugitive runaways, including enslaved people, indentured servants, and apprentices. So I thought that was fascinating that this was just a very common thing for people to advertise. And I did see on the page a lot of other advertisements. Well, something else that AI came up with was talking about the apprentice system in Colonial Virginia. And it said indentured servants and bound apprentices were separate categories. Bound apprentices were typically American-born children, usually orphans or from impoverished families who could not care for them. They were under court control and bound to work as apprentices until a certain age. In England, apprentices learning a trade typically had contracts lasting 1 year, after which terms were renegotiated, but colonial apprenticeships generally lasted much longer. So the sources for those were Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia of Virginia, and also a website called Colonial Williamsburg. So I really appreciate getting links and sources when I am, trying to do some research on this and understand the context.
Yeah, it's really great to have those, like, instead of having a Google search page with like links you have to click on and go read it there, to have it kind of summarized for you in the AI so that you can then kind of get an overview, and then you can click the link to go view more at the site where that came from if you want to dive deeper. This is kind of a nice way to search. And I find it when I'm doing Google searches, I kind of wish that I had the AI summary on. Sometimes I don't get that and I'm like, oh, I should go over and just do this search in ChatGPT or whatever. So it's interesting that now our internet searching is kind of transitioning into this, like AI gives you a summary of the pages, that you're finding. And I know some of the websites out there are probably worried about people not coming to their site anymore if they're relying on ads, you know?
Right. Yeah, but responsible use means that you go really look at the source and not just believe what AI tells you. So
True.
hopefully it's still working for people because we want people to keep putting up great content, you know. So,
Yeah. Side note, I was going to ask you though, with that context about the indentured servants versus the bound apprentices. So, what's your theory on why John was an apprentice?
well, his family had been in the colony since 1626, I think, is when the first Royston, Thomas Royston, arrived and settled in Gloucester County, Virginia. And so this is several generations later. And I don't know if they were impoverished, if that was why he needed to be lent out, you know, or maybe he just needed to learn a trade. The sad thing about Gloucester County is it's one of those severely burned Virginia counties where we literally have no records. The way we've been able to piece together the family is through parish records. So it was part of Pettsworth Parish, and that's how we have been able to. And when I say parish records, it's not like birth, marriage, and death. It's their um, vestry book where they just talk about the work of the parish, but it will name some relationships. And so, scouring those, we've been able to piece together the family. And of course, this advertisement is key because it does name the father. So, that's just a long way of saying I have no idea if the family had lost their land, what was going on, why he needed to be an apprentice, or maybe he was just a troublemaker at home and his dad said, okay, now you have to go be an apprentice because you can't live here anymore.
Yeah, I wondered that, if he was a troublemaker. Or did his father die? I mean, do we know when Richard Wyatt Royston passed away?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll look that up.
Yeah, I'm curious because it said orphans. And so, even if his mother was still alive, sometimes without the father there, they were considered an orphan. And then they were bound out because they didn't have a father to maybe train them in his own trade or whatever it was.
That is such a good point. Okay, his father, Richard Wyatt Royston, didn't die till 1790.
Hmm.
So he was well alive. Yeah, that's such a fun question and one that we may never know the answer, except for we can look at his later life and patterns and see perhaps that gives us some clues.
Yeah. So just to remind everyone, this advertisement came from 1770 and his father didn't die till 1790. So definitely he wasn't an orphan as far as we know.
And the father was in that vestry book of the parish. And so he seemed like he was pretty prominent in the community. So I don't think he was impoverished either. He was doing all sorts of things in the area. So that is making me lean towards the idea that perhaps John just needed to go learn to do something with his
Yeah.
time,
And
needed
he
to
was a
go work.
troublemaker. So his dad said,
Hmm.
"You're going to be an apprentice now."
Yeah, yeah. And he didn't like it and he ran away. Was not happy because, you think, okay, why would someone run away? Well, maybe the man he was apprenticed to was treating him poorly, or maybe he just didn't like to work. Lots of questions.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking that he was treated poorly, but also maybe didn't like to work.
Well, and if the family was of a little bit higher class and he felt like he shouldn't be,
Hmm.
that he was feeling like he was higher socially, that could be another point that he didn't feel like he should be doing the work he was made to do. Yeah, fun to think about, isn't it?
But it does seem like he got away, right? Because there's no record of him going back. Do we know?
We don't have any other records. We don't know. Yeah, I know.
I mean, the rest of his life, I mean, he lived a life. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So, going back to the clothing, after having that description of the clothing, it's natural to be curious about what that clothing was. So, the next question Diana asked AI with Claude was, "Tell me more about the clothing he was wearing." And she was using Claude's reasoning model, which shows its thinking process. And it was also searching the web, which is great that Claude can do that now. So, Claude responded with the following. So first, the light-colored frieze coat, which I looked up how to say that. I think I originally said frieze. It's spelled Frize. So apparently that's pronounced frieze. The light-colored frieze coat. Frieze was among the common colonial textiles available in America. It was a coarse woolen fabric, quite different from the fine fabrics we might associate with the name today. At Jamestown, the Virginia Company supplied suits of canvas, frieze, and broadcloth to early colonists, indicating frieze was considered suitable working class fabric. And that information came from the Cornell website. And then the coat featured a small cape to it, which was typical of working men's outerwear in the period. The fact that it was light colored suggests it was either undyed natural wool or a pale dye. Darker colors were more expensive and showed less dirt. And then for the phrase bound with ferriting, this is a particularly interesting detail. Claude says ferriting refers to binding the edge of fabric with tape, typically used on the bottom of petticoats or the edge of felt hat brims. Glossary of 18th century costume.
Well, Claude continues with a discussion of the new broadcloth, waistcoat, and breeches. And it said, this represents the most significant piece of John's wardrobe. Broadcloth was a heavily fulled or napped wool fabric with a simple, tight weave and smooth, flat surface that was durable and easy to sew. It became the everyday fabric across colonial America and could be made of materials found in the colonies such as flax or wool. And that came from the website Colonial Williamsburg Silhouettes Costumes. AI continues, broadcloth was common for men's clothing and came in various weights, with superfine broadcloth being extremely tight woven and dense, used for uniforms and outerwear. Then we also know that the fact that these garments were new and made of pretty fine cloth suggests they were of good quality, likely a significant investment for an apprentice. The blue or blue-gray color is notable. Blue dyes were available but more expensive than natural colors. When serge de Nimes was made of cotton in blue or black by 1770, it became what we know as denim. And this color choice suggests that these were not everyday work clothes, but rather John's best garments. Well, that again lets us know that the family or he had resources to have something that seemed a little bit nicer than maybe what someone would wear who was very, very poor.
And it kind of makes you wonder if Samuel Daniel, the employer, had purchased those items of clothing for his apprentice, or if they were something he came with to the apprenticeship from his family. And I think the employer is supposed to like provide room, board, and clothing for their apprentice, right? Maybe I'm just making that up, but
It could be either scenario, I think.
and we don't also know how long he had been apprenticed there either.
Right.
So that's interesting. So, what does this clothing reveal about John Royston's status? Well, Claude had something to say about that. So it continued on and said the combination of garments tells us several important things. That maybe he was of a mixed social status. John wore a working class frieze coat alongside fine broadcloth garments, suggesting he occupied a middle position, above common laborers but below the gentry. And then investment in appearance. Men's waistcoats and breeches continued to be fashionable throughout this period, and working class people often wore the same garments as fashionable people, though they owned fewer clothes and they were made of cheaper fabrics. So this is from a Wikipedia article, 1750 to 1775 in Western fashion. John's new and pretty fine broadcloth garments suggest either his master provided quality clothing or John or his family invested significantly in his appearance. Claude goes on to describe skilled tradesmen's attire. Colonial men's formal attire included suits made of woolen broadcloth and waistcoats were standard. These styles indicated respectability and skill level. And this is from a brief look at colonial attire on the Thread website. As an apprentice, chairmaker, and blacksmith, John would need to present himself respectably to potential customers. And I was going to ask you, do we think Samuel Daniel was a chairmaker or a blacksmith or both?
Well, that's a good question, and that would be an excellent research project because, believe it or not, I have not researched Samuel Daniel, and that would be awesome to learn about him.
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe he was both.
It seems kind of like an odd combination, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that does make me wonder, but that would be really fun to research and see if he has any other advertisements for any other apprentices, or just to learn more about him. That'd be fascinating.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And I wonder if maybe his dad was a chairmaker and Samuel Daniel was a blacksmith, so he learned a little bit of each, or maybe the other way around. Who knows?
Yeah.
It sounds like though we think that Richard Wyatt Royston might have been in the gentry if he was in the vestry book so much.
Yeah, maybe. Or I like how Claude said he could be just like there in the middle, not working class, but maybe not the upper class either, just a little bit there in the middle bit. So that's an interesting point.
Right. Well, Claude continues to give us some more ideas for what the clothing can tell us. One is flight preparations. The fact that John took with him sundry other clothes suggests he planned his escape carefully and intended to maintain a respectable appearance to avoid suspicion while traveling. And lastly, Claude says that the 30-shilling reward offered by Samuel Daniel reflects not just John's skills as an apprentice, but also the significant value of the clothing he wore. Quality broadcloth garments represented a substantial investment in 1770 colonial Virginia.
Yeah, that really agrees with what we were talking about. Well, I was really pleased with the quality of the photos. I thought those were so fun. And the research on the clothing, it did give me some good context. All the information about apprenticeships in Colonial Virginia and the assessment that John came from that middle class meshes with what I know about the family as we've been discussing. So Thomas Royston, the immigrant ancestor, got thousands of acres of land there in Gloucester County, Virginia in the 1600s. It was under the headright system where for every person you brought over from England, usually as a indentured servant, you would get so much land. And so we do have those records of how much land he had. And I've been just looking at my tree and some of the information to answer some of the questions. So his dad, Richard Wyatt Royston, in 1770 was taxed for 800 acres and paid, for a white tithe, 7 enslaved people, 2 horses, 8 cattle. So he seemed fairly prosperous. And then in the vestry book in 1771, he is the clerk of the new church. And then here's a very interesting one that I need to get my hands on. In 1772 to 1774, there is a court case of guess who? Richard W. Royston versus Samuel Daniel. So
Mm.
that makes me wonder what's going on there. And then he signed a legislative petition, and both John and his father, Richard, signed this legislative petition in 1778. So there are quite a few different records there for both of them. And John, right after he disappears, in 1770, he went back to Gloucester County. It's not like he disappeared forever because, well, he's the signer. There's a land record for him. So here we go again. Samuel Daniel, plaintiff versus John Royston, defendant, 1773. Okay, I need to research Samuel Daniel and figure out what all of this was going on. I'm sure that's going to add a lot to the story. So he apparently went home, and then they're involved in some legal battles.
Yeah, he probably wanted his apprentice back. Well, what are you looking at? The notes that you're looking at right now with these dates and things.
My ancestry tree. So I had put all of this information into my original, when we were working with Ancestral Quest and putting these details in. And I have not personally looked at these court records. We have another Royston researcher who has since passed away who would go up to the courthouses and the Library of Virginia every summer and do a lot of this research. And so he shared it with me, but I only have, the abstracts. So now that we have so much online, I'm pretty sure Family Search has a lot of these original records so that I could just pull those up and learn all about them. That will be a big project because there are so many records on John. so many records. So, but that's exciting to think about how fun it will be to go discover more. But I especially want to look at this court record of Samuel Daniel and learn all about this court case.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see if these are chancery court cases, because I know Library of Virginia has a lot of the chancery cases up, and maybe they're just digitized right there as well.
They could be, yeah. And some of these records are in Gloucester County. And then he moves on to another county, Loudoun County, and he's there for a few years. And then he's got some records in Fairfax County. And then he leaves Virginia altogether and goes south to Newberry County, South Carolina, then over to Georgia. So he really did move around a lot. He was not afraid of starting over in new places. But he's in court records every place he goes. So, which is not surprising. I mean, they use the courts for all sorts of things. That was the way, things were run. You had a problem, you just took it right to the court.
Yeah. Well, this is really fun to imagine what John Royston, the runaway apprentice, looked like, and to learn more about what his clothing might have been able to tell us about his social status. What a good lesson in analyzing every little detail, and a fun lesson in how AI can help you put together a lot of information along with the links to the websites that it came from to help you understand things. So this was really fun. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's so fun to go back to previous research. This is research I did clear back in 2005 and up to about 2008. And so this is really old research, which is why I have not been as detailed as I probably should have been, because I didn't know any better. That we learn all the time. And so now I see that I can go back and do more with it, which will be really fun.
Yeah, this would be a fun mini project when we do the January 14-day mini challenge, to just kind of like dive into the Samuel Daniel connection and learn a little more about that.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yep.
Well, thanks everyone for listening today, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your research. If you want to learn more, purchase our books, Research Like a Pro and Research Like a Pro with DNA, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. You can also register for our online courses or study groups of the same names. Learn more at familylocket.com/services. To share your progress and ask questions, join our private Facebook group by sending us your book receipt or joining our courses. To get updates in your email inbox each Monday, subscribe to our newsletter at familylocket.com/newsletter. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We read each review and are so thankful for them. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.